Hey everyone, Josh with Royal Treatment here. Tonight I'm going to tie summer steelhead fly. This is actually kind of a classic fly. I haven't fished it in a while, but in the old days I used to fish it quite a bit. This is my version of what's called a purple angel. You know, it's similar to a greenbutt skunk or many of those kind of two-tone bodies. Real easy. I tie it on an Alec Jackson. This is a black Spey hook, but I tie it on the silver one. Tie it on steelhead irons, a little bit heavier to get it sink. You tie it on whatever hook you want, it doesn't matter. I like the silver hook for a little bit more bling. I like the black for the more kind of classic look. I think they both work really well. Purple and pink color combo is killer. This fly in general on the Deschutes works really good. Works on the clear water, works a lot of places you go the Grand Ronde. It's a nice, easy, fun fly to tie. Looks really good when you tie it. The materials that I'm using aren't the materials that you have to use. This is calf tail. You could use kid goat. You could use bucktail, polar bear if you have it. I'm going to tie the hackle with hen hackle, but you could use strung Chinese saddle. I'm going to do the tail with pheasant tippet. You can do it with just hackle fibers. You know, I'm going to do the body with STS Trilobal dub. You could use Angora. I mean, there's any number of ways. But this kind of dubbed pink and purple body is the ticket. Good. It's a good fly. I like to tie them relatively small. For me, I use mostly small flies on the Deschutes. This one is a size 5. It's kind of tied a little bit low water. You can see that the whole body is in front of the point of the hook, so it's a smaller fly. If I wanted it to be bigger, I could easily extend it out longer, but this is kind of my go-to right here, go-to style, and you can typically see all my flies look very similar to this, just different color combinations. Hope you tie it, hope you like it, hope you fish it, hope you catch fish with it. Thanks. All right, let's get started. All right, let's get started. So I'm going to start with a number 5 Alec Jackson steelhead hook in black. You can use silver if you want. Any color works really good. I'm going to use some Danville 6/0 in red. Danville 6/0 works good. I like uni quite a bit also. Those are probably my two go-tos for this style of fly. I'm going to start by just laying down a little base of thread here. If I were tying this on a silver hook, I probably would not do this step. I would just do just really tie in the tail first. But I'm going to do a little butt of Lagarton oval, small oval tinsel. So basically what I'm going to do is strip off a little bit of the tinsel, so I just have silk. And I'm going to tie it in, and I just use this technique so I don't build up a big bump or anything. Trim whatever little excess silk is left there. And I like this to be a little bit in front of the point. This is going to be kind of my low water style. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically make my first wrap, and then I'm going to make about 4 more wraps, and I'm going to do them going forward. So they're going to be just one right in front of the other. So I have just a little tag. So just like that. Lock that into place, and that should be pretty good. And you want to do them all edge to edge so there's no material or no red thread shining through. Next step, I'm going to add a little tail. I like to use pheasant. This is Amherst. I'm going to do a purple tail, but you could use regular hackle fiber or any kind of pheasant tippet that you like. So typically what I do is I find a feather off that head, strip off the unbarred parts. I'm going to take this and I'm going to get enough tail material to what I feel is going to make the right amount of tail. And I'm going to try to even up these tips here by kind of pulling them back, just like that. and then just go ahead and cut them off. Now they should all be pretty even. I'm gonna put them in my mouth and get them a little wet with saliva. And now I'm gonna kind of fit my tail to the length that I want it to be. I want it to be about to the bend of the hook. I'm gonna do a pinch wrap or a loose wrap to lock it in place. And I'm gonna wrap back holding it kind of up. And what's gonna happen is when I get my thread wraps up to that oval tinsel, it's gonna kind of give it this attitude where it kind of wants to poke up into the air a little bit. So just like that. And I'm just gonna advance my thread forward, trim off whatever is left, just like that. So there's my tail. You have my tag. The two dubbings that I'm gonna use, STS Trilobal, Cerise and purple. You can use Angora goat, use anything that you like. First, we're gonna do the butt color. This has a pink butt. I'm gonna just get a little dubbing wax on there. And this STS Trilobal is a nice, flashy, easy to dub material. I like to do touch dub for my flies, especially like this, so I can really get a small, fine dubbing noodle, and it's not going to be too bushy and too thick. You can see it's just really, really fine amount of dubbing on there. And it's probably going to take me 6 wraps or more of dubbing to get kind of the right amount to make this the right ball. So maybe that right there. Now I'm going to tie in my rib, and I typically tie that on the opposite side of me so that when I come around and start wrapping underneath, that it is going to roll under and over and kind of just appear, and it'll look a little bit better to the eye. So same deal, now we're gonna do the purple. I'm gonna just put my dubbing wax on there, make sure it's not too like chunked up. And I'm gonna just take that, a good amount of that purple. And this stuff's coarse, so it takes a little bit of working to get it to hold. And I'm just gonna keep putting a little bit on and twisting and putting a little bit on and twisting till I get a nice 5-6 inch long noodle or dubbing rope, something like that. And then I'm gonna kind of just start dubbing a little bit back and forth. I'm trying to build it up without getting too much bulk. And I'll have to just kind of go back over it a little bit. And I know this is a little bit slower than building one thick noodle, but I kind of like it. I feel like I get a little more control, and I'm not getting a real thick body on this fly. Something like that. And I might have to do it, you know, let's say 3 times or something like that before I get the right amount of dubbing on. But I get a nice, tight, small, compact body, which is really what I'm looking for, right? Oh, maybe not. Pull that off and put a little too much dubbing on there, and so it wasn't wrapping around the thread really. Okay, so probably the last one. And I want to, when I finish this, you can see here that it kind of tapers forward, so that when I finish this fly, I don't want to have kind of a straight up and down like curb where that is going to fall off. I want it to finish and taper down so that when I put in my hackle and my wing, the wing will be able to ride low. So if there's any long fibers sticking up here, I'm just going to kind of spin this around and trim whatever I can, whatever wants to come off. And then once I get that kind of done, I'll peel all that stuff away. Now I'm going to do my rib, and you're going to do 4 or 5 turns. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I guess like that. Done. And I lock it into place, roll it over. So 1, 2, and I pretty much try to lock everything down with about 3 wraps of thread, so I'm not building up a super big head here. So next step, I'm going to do my hackle. I like to use the hen hackle. It's a little more webby, a little more round, and I'm gonna find a feather. I pulled a couple off already, but when I tie these feathers in, I like to tie them in by the tip, and I pull off most of the material off the base. So now it's like a little handle for me to hold on to as I'm tying this, and I get rid of this weird little fluffy bits right here. So kind of like that. And then what I'm gonna do before I even tie this, I'm gonna measure and see kind of how long this is. And I want it to basically be from the end of the dubbing to about the pink. And I wanna get about 3 or 4 turns, which is going to be about 1 inch of feather. So that's gonna be maybe right here. So something like that. And so I stroke it away so I have a good tie-in point. And I'm just gonna lay this down right on top. Boom. 3 or 4 wraps to really get it locked into place. Okay, now it's in there good. Trim off that tip section. Now I'm gonna lay down just a little base of thread so that when I lock this in, it's gonna stay. Now what I do is I fold these back and just hold them with my fingers as I'm wrapping, and that's gonna get all of this hackle to point back and not get twisted up. And I'm just gonna keep folding, and I just use my fingers, fold and pull. There's 2 wraps. There's 3, and we got about 4. So I could have trimmed off and trimmed it and tied it off, but this will be fine. It's not heavily hackled. It's not so crazy and bushy, plus it's nice and short. You can see that hackle is basically goes to about the end of the purple dubbing. So something like that. And I kind of just give it a little stroke back, and you can see it's kind of right there at the end. It looks really nice. Again, now I want to lay down just a few wraps of thread. When I tie in my wing, which is next, if I don't have a base of thread under it, the wing will have a tendency to pull out. Okay, and then I'm gonna advance my thread back. So it's right up against that hackle. And I'm gonna use white calf tail here. Again, you could use whatever you want, kid goat, bucktail, polar bear if you have it. This calf tail looks pretty good when you tie it in. And with these small kind of low water versions, you don't need a lot of material. So it's a small wing. We'll see if that was enough or not once I kind of drop it in my hair stacker and let it even out. And I took a little bit of the fibers. I took a little bit of the fibers out of the back that were the short loose hairs. Get that kind of junky underfur out of the way. Seems like I got about the right amount here. It doesn't take a lot to have a wing, and I want my wing to go a little ways past the end of the fly, but I don't normally have it go the whole length out to the end of the tail. So once I kind of size up where I want it to be, I'm gonna just switch hands. My hand is right at the tie-in point, and what I do is I pinch my fingers together and I do that loose wrap or pinch wrap, and I wedge my thread back between my fingers, come around the other side, and just pull straight up, and that's gonna lock it right where I want it. And I'm just gonna get a couple thread wraps in there to make sure that it's really locked down in place. and just I look at it a little bit, see what I think, see if it's long enough for my likes. If I want it to come back, I've only put a couple wraps of thread on. I can definitely adjust and pull this back. So something like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this material, I'm going to lift it up, slide my scissors right under, and just trim it off just like that. Now I have these nice flush ends. If you missed any fibers, now's the time to trim them out. And now I'm going to take and build up a small thread head. And it should be pretty fine because this butt ends of the wing are so short. So something like that. And I want my head to have a little substance. It doesn't need to be invisible, it looks weird, but it doesn't need to be huge. So there's, I feel like that looks pretty good. I like to whip finish, and with this, because I'm gonna give it a coat of head cement, I'm gonna just do a 3-turn whip finish, and I'm trying to get them more or less one wrap right behind the other. So just like that. For my head cement here, I like to use the hard as whole. This hard as whole I've probably had for maybe 10 years, so it's an old one. And I just keep adding thinner to it, and it keeps working. You can see it still had the old label. I like to take a bodkin and just dip it down in there. And typically my heads will get 2 or 3 coats of lacquer. And the first one kind of just is a little penetrator. So it'll penetrate into those thread wraps and make sure that the butts of the wing don't pop out. I don't want it to be too thick and too big. The eye is not crowded on this one. This is a good looking bug. So something like that. And that's going to be my finished fly. If I feel like I need to do any trim work, which maybe would be any kind of wild fibers from the dubbing, now's the time to trim those out of there. I don't think it really matters. I want it to be nice and buggy. I want it to have a nice soft wing. The white wing is easy to see out there and gives a little glow. If I'm feeling that I need a more flashy fly, sometimes I'll put a little crystal flash in the wing so it shows up. But that's my version of the Purple Angel. And this will be a good steelhead fly, and I have no doubt in my mind that I'm going to catch a fish on it, hopefully this coming week. I hope you guys enjoy and you get out there and fish it. Thanks.